Now we will begin the modeling with linear programming. When we say linear programming, it means that all the equations will become linear. So let us start with two variable LP model. So LP stands for linear programming. Here in this particular example, we have ready mix which produces both interior and exterior paints from two raw materials M1 and M2. The following table provides the basic data of the problem. So we can see that tons of raw material per ton of the exterior and interior paint are given. Maximum daily availability in tons are also given. So for raw material M1, we need that is required 6 tons by exterior paint and 4 tons by interior paint. Similarly, the raw material M2 is required. So 1 ton will be required for exterior paint and 2 ton is required for interior paint. So which says that if I'm going to make exterior paint, then I need 6 ton and 1 ton to make a exterior paint, and similarly 4 ton and 2 tons for interior paint. If we look at the availability of a raw material M1, which is 24 in ton, and raw material M2, that is 6 tons. If we look at the profit per ton, meaning that when we are going to sell exterior paint, it will be $5,000. And if it is interior paint, it will become 4,000. A market survey indicates that the daily demand for interior paint cannot exceed that for exterior paint by more than 1 ton. So meaning that the difference, so if we look at the demand of interior, so the difference between exterior minus interior, the difference between interior minus exterior should not go more than 1. Also, the maximum daily demand for interior paint is 2 ton. So interior paint, we can have it either 2 ton because it is maximum, or it can be little less than 2 tons. Now Ready Mix wants to determine the optimal, that is the best product mix of interior and exterior paint that maximizes the total daily profit. Now here, if you look at the table, we have to understand what could be our decision alternatives. So one guideline to understand it is, let us read the objective function. If we are reading the statement, we can see that we will be maximizing the total daily profit. And the profit will come when we are going to sell exterior and interior paints. This means that our decision variable should be based on the number of units which we are going to sell of the exterior paint and number of a unit that we are going to sell for the interior paint. So this is the what you can say the guideline, that looking at the objective function, we can decide that the decision alternatives or decision variable should be related to exterior paint and interior paint. Now let us understand what could be the constraint for the given problem. First of all, the first constraint we can find is based on the maximum availability. So the amount of exterior and interior paint that will be made using raw material M1 and M2, our maximum daily availability should not reach. So this means that the amount should not go beyond, say, 24 for M1, should not go beyond 6. Similarly, we have constraint like interior paint cannot exceed exterior paint by more than 1 ton, and also the maximum daily demand for interior paint is 2 hours. So all these conditions are basically telling about the constraints or the restriction on the problem. What is the objective function? As we have discussed, that we want to maximize the total daily profit. Understanding this particular problem, let us write the LP model for the given problem. So as we understood that from the objective function, we can find that the turns produced daily of the exterior paint will become variable 1, and turns produced daily for interior paint will become x2. Using x1 and x2, we can find how much profit the exterior paint can give and how much profit an interior paint can give. So we are just multiplying 5x1 and 4x2. This is in thousand in dollars. So our objective function will become maximizing Z equals to 5x1 plus 4x2. So this is what we want to maximize, and the constraint. So first constraint, as we remember, that the uses of raw material by both the paint should be less than the maximum availability. Now looking at the table again, how we can find what is the uses of interior, what is the uses of M1? That is, suppose X1 is the amount of exterior and X2 is the amount of interior paint, then 6x1 plus 4x2. So this is the amount which we needed, which is required from the raw material 1. So in this case, we are going to write 6x1 plus 4x2. Similarly, we can write for raw material M2 as 1x1. So we can directly write x1 plus 2x2. Then with that should be either equal to 6 or less than 6. So that's why we are writing this constraint based on the raw material 1 and a 2 in this format. Now, why we have written smaller than type? It's only because this is the maximum availability given, meaning that it can either go to 24 or less than 24. Similarly, it can either go to 6 or less than 6, and that's why we are writing this smaller than sign. Now, we remember that the market surveys says about the daily demand for interior paint that cannot exceed for the exterior paint by more than 1 ton. If I'm going to write this particular equation, we remember that x2 is the ton, so x2 minus x1. So this difference should not be more than 1. So more than 1 means it can be maximum 1 or it can be less than 1. So that's why x2 minus x1 should be smaller than and equals to 1. So this is smaller than equal to sign comes from more than. So cannot exceed more than 1 ton. And as we can see the next line, the maximum daily demand for interior paint is 2, meaning that for the interior paint is 2, meaning that the interior paint can have 2 or less than 2, and that's why we are writing x2 is smaller than equals to 2. If we put together all the equations now, we have maximum Z is equals to 5x1 plus 4x2. This is our objective function, and this objective function is subjected to various constraints, basically on the raw material availability, the market survey, x2 should be smaller than 2, and both x1 and x2 should be greater than 0. Now you remember that if we are going to make anything, either we will be producing nothing or we are producing some amount. So that's why we are putting this non-negative x1, x2 should be greater than equals to 0. As a recap, the feasible solution is the one which a value of x1 and x2 for which all the constraints as well as the variable bound are satisfied. If any one of them is not satisfied, so that's why I have written otherwise, then the solution will become infeasible solution. I'm giving you a practice that if you write a solution say 3-1, then let me know whether it is feasible or infeasible. You make it out, you put the values and find it whether the solution 3-1 is feasible or infeasible. Similarly, solution 4-1 is feasible or not. There are certain properties of LP model. So here the objective function and constraints are linear. Linearity implies that LP must satisfy 3 basic properties. So let me go back first. Now you see that the objective function, the constraints which we have written, all of them are linear equation. and that's why it is called LP model. Now let us look at the basic properties. First is called proportionality. Contribution of each decision variable in both the objective function and constraint is directly proportional to the value of the variable. This means that what we see here is the contribution, it is directly proportional here. So this is what we are trying to say. Look at the additivity. Total contribution of all decision variables in the objective function and in the constraint to be the direct sum of the individual contribution of each variable. So if we look at the total contribution of decision variable in the objective function, so here you can see that we are writing as 5x1 plus 4x2. This is the total contribution in the objective function. Similarly, certainty. Certainty means the coefficients of the objective function and constraints are deterministic. Like the number 5, 4, 6, 4, here it is 1, here it is 2, minus 1 and a 1. All of them, they are deterministic, means they are not going to change during the formulation as well as finding the optimal solution. Now, I'm going to discuss you the very basic technique or a method to find a solution for the given LP problem. That method is called as a graphical solution. A graphical solution, as we can understand, that any problem having two number of variables can be solved using graphical method. And we know that the ready mix problem is made of two variables. So this graphical solution will help us to determine the feasible solution in space. So we are going to find the feasible solution in space first. Thereafter, we will be finding the optimal solution among all the feasible points in the solution space. So let us take this ready mix model here. So our first task is determine the feasible space. Now you can see we have written x1 and x2 and various lines are drawn with respect to the constraint 1 to 6. Also, among those lines, there is a shaded region which we refer as a solution space. So let us see how we can make it. Let me take the first equation. The first equation, the constraint equation, it is written as 6x1 plus 4x2 smaller than equal to 24. Meaning that this particular line we have to draw here. How we can draw? Let us simplify it. 6x1 plus 4x2 equal to 24. Now this is the line which we can write. So as you can see that this is what we got. So this is the line number 1. What we are going to do here is that this particular equality sign, we have drawn this line, but our actual constraint is written as smaller than equal to type. Here we will see the origin. So origin means x1 and x2 values are 0. If I put x1 and x2 0, so this means 0 is smaller than 24. Yes. So what we are going to do is you can see that this arrow we have introduced, meaning that from this particular line, when we are looking towards the origin, which is this A point, then anything which is coming below this particular line, all of them will become the solution space as per equation number 1. Now let us repeat this process because we have 6 equations. Now the second equation is x1 plus 2x2 is smaller than 6. We are going to write this equation as x1 plus 2x2 equals to 6. When we are going to do, we can draw this particular line in x1 and x2 plane, and this is the line we get it. Again, let us look at the origin. So 0, 0. If I'm going to put in equation number 2, so 0 plus 0, which is 0 is smaller than 6. Yes. So this means that from this particular line, I should look into toward the origin. Now what happened that we have the first line which says that look towards the origin is feasible. Similarly, for the second equation, we look toward the origin. Now, as soon as this particular equation is introduced, we will be finding what is the common space by these two lines. Now, one by one, if I draw equation number 3, 4, 5, and a 6, what you can see here is we have shown all these lines. Now, our task is, let us find the common space that is feasible for us. So if we find, now you can see for line number 1, there is an arrow, 2 also there is an arrow, 3 there is one arrow, 4 is also there is an arrow, and we have 5, which is the x1 should be greater than 0, and the 6 in the upward direction. If you take all the 6 lines together, you will see that this is the feasible space which is common among all the lines. So I'm repeating again, the space that is common among all the equations. So these are the constraints as well as variable bounds. All of them are taken here. So let us see these the common space. Now I have shown you the points such as A, B, C, D, E, and F. So these are the, as you can see, that these are nothing but the point of intersection between the two lines. Now we got the common space by the all constraints and variable bounds. So the second task is determine the optimum solution. How we can find? First is, let us take the point O. So this is origin for us. Now, if I take this origin, and in this case, x1 and x2 values are 0. So we know that when we are going to put x1 and x2 0, our profit z is also 0. So the equation of a z you can see here. So if I'm going to put x1 and x2 0, so the maximum z will also be 0. Now let us do one thing. Let us move in this direction. Now when we are moving away from the origin, so this particular line, this is the line which is corresponding to 5x1 plus 4x2 equal to 10. So this means that when I'm moving away from the origin, the value of a z is 10, means our profit has improved. Let us further move. If I am going further, then this is the line which is representing z equals to 15, means the objective function is further improving because we want to maximize z. So I'm getting better and better profit. Finally, what is the last point at which this particular line? So this line is corresponding to 5x1 plus 4x2. So the slope of the line is known to us. So when I'm moving this particular line and try to find out what is the last point of the feasible search space, then that will become optimum solution for the maximization problem. Right. So here what we understood that when we are taking this particular line, so the solution x1 equals to 3 tons, x2 is equals to 1.5 ton, and z equals to 21,000. So x1, x2 is the optimum solution with the function value z is equals to 21,000. So this is how graphically for a maximization problem, we are moving away from the origin so that we will get the last point on the feasible search space. So this is what we are trying to improve. Now, another way to find the optimum solution, that in the previous case, we are moving the Z line. So in the previous case, we are moving this particular Z line away from the origin and trying to find out what is the last point. So it is easy to understand this is the point. Mathematically, if we have to do it, we are going to find the corner points. So if I go back, so the corner point, you can see A, F, E, D, C, B, all these are the corner points. So for these corner points, I can find out x1 and x2. Why? Because these are the point of intersection of the two lines. Now, once we calculate say 0, 0, say x1 and x2, I can put into the Z equation, I can get 0. Similarly for B, C, D, E, and F, if I compare all of them, I will get to know that the point C is the optimum one. Why? Because it has the maximum Z. So this is called corner solution approach, where we can find the optimum solution by looking only the corner solutions. Now let us move to the another problem. Here our objective is, by looking at the problem statement, we have to write the mathematical equations first, representing the variables, objective function, constraints, and variable bounds. Let us take the second problem. This is based on the diet problem. Here, this Ozark Farms uses at least 800 lb of special feed daily. The special feed is a mixture of corn and a soybean meal with the following composition. So this is clear that the corn and soybean are required to make a special feed, and we need at least 800 lb. Now looking at the properties of the soybean and a corn, since now for the corn per lb of the feed stuff, we are going to get 0.09 protein, 0.02 fiber from corn. Similarly, from soybean meal, we are going to get 0.60 protein, 0.06 fiber. Now the corn and soybean are available in the market. Their corresponding cost is 0.30 cents, and this is 0.9 cents. The dietary requirement of a special feed are at least 30% protein, meaning that the feed should be decided, means the corn and soybean should be mixed in such a way that protein of the special feed should be at least 30% and at most 5% of fiber. Means it can be 30% or more, but fiber can be 5 or less than 5. Now the task is, we want to determine the daily minimum cost feed mix. In order to find the decision variable, although from the problem it is very clear, but looking at the objective function, we have to find minimum cost feed mix. Now how we can find the minimum cost? Based on the cost of soybean and the corn. So we know that the amount of corn and amount of soybean will become the decision variable for the given problem. So here let us write x1 as a lb of a corn in a daily mix and x2 lb of a soybean meal in the daily mix. Now let us write the objective function. Since we want to minimize the cost, so 0.3 times of x1, 0.9 times of x2, this we want to minimize. So that's why minimize z. So you remember that in the previous problem, our objective function was maximization. Here, our objective function is minimization. So minimize z is equals to 0.3 x1 plus 0.9 x2. Looking at the constraint, first is at least 800 lb. This means minimum of 800 lb of the special feed we have to made it. Since x1 and x2 are the amount of corn and soybean, we can write this x1 plus x2 800. Now I am using greater than sign. Why? Because the problem statement says that at least, meaning that it can be 800 and it can be more than that. So that's why we are using greater than sign here. Now the other constraint is that the dietary requirement of the special feed are at least 30% of the protein, meaning that when we have the protein, so how we will get protein? I can get protein from the corn as well as from the soybean. So we know x1 is the amount of a corn, so 0.09 x1, this much protein I can get from corn. 0.60 x2, this much protein I can get from the soybean. Now this should be at least 30% of the at least 30% protein of the spatial feed. So how we are going to write this? So 0.09x1 plus 0.6x2 on the right hand side, because it is 30%, so 0.3 times of x1 and x2. So x1 and x2 is what is the amount of our daily mix, and we should get at least 30%. Since it is 30% means at least 30% means it will be 30% or it can be more than that. And therefore we are using this sign greater than type. Similarly, we can write for the fiber requirement as from the table 0.02x1 plus 0.06x2, and the at most 5% means 0.05 of x1 and x2. And here I'm using smaller than and equal to sign. It is because small at most means either it can take 5% or less. So that's why it is smaller than and equal to type. And finally, we have variable bounds as x1 and x2 should be greater than and equals to 0. Since this particular problem is a two variable problem, and we can simplify these two equations. So here we are writing the constraints. So here constraint 1, 2, and 3 are given. Among these three, so for example, we have to find which particular direction we have to look. So you remember that in the previous example, I told you that if suppose this is x1 plus x2 equal to 800. So this is the line. If I take 0, 0, then 0 plus 0 is greater than 0? No. So this means that rather than I should look toward the origin, I should look away from the origin. So that's why the space or the area above this particular line is feasible. Now in this case, we have this line 0.03x1 minus 0.0x2 greater than 0. Now this line is going from the origin. Now we don't have anything to say whether the portion which is above the line is feasible or below the line. In this case, what we can do is we can take some random point, say 100 and 0. So x1 is 100, 100 and 0. So as from this figure, you know that 100 and 0 is a feasible point, meaning that we have to look toward 100 and 0. So the space or if we look in towards the downward direction, so the space is feasible. So in this case, we can find the common space among the three equations. How we can find the optimum solution? You remember that in the previous example, which was maximization problem, in that case, we started from 0 and we were moving away from the 0. The given problem is a minimization problem, meaning that we have to move towards the origin. So we are moving towards the origin. And when we are moving, we are trying to find out which is the last corner point. In this case, it is corresponding to this particular point, and that is the solution. That is the optimum solution for the given problem. Now LP has a various applications. There are many applications which are given in the Taha book. So as I said, this book, you can find it. That PDF version is available. You do Google and then you will find this book. So other example, you take care. We will be discussing few specific applications such as production planning and inventory control, bus scheduling, and trim loss. Let us start with the production planning and inventory control model. The problem statement says that in preparation for the winter season, a clothing company is manufacturing the parka and goose overcoats, insulated pants, and gloves. All products are manufactured in 4 different departments, that is cutting, insulating, sewing, and packaging. So these 4 product needs these 4 departments. The company has received firm orders from its products. For its products, the contract stipulates a penalty for undelivered item. The following table provides the pertinent data of the situation. Now the time per unit means how much time we need per unit that is given. For example, in the first column, we have the various departments and we have different kinds of products which we are making. If we look at Parka, it requires 0.30 hours in cutting. Similarly, Goose overcoat needs 0.30 hour for cutting, and similarly pants and gloves. If we're looking at the cutting department, the maximum capacity it can handle is 1000 hour. Similarly, we have insulating department and time per unit for all the products are given. Similarly, the capacity is given. Now, when we talk about capacity, it means we can use 1000 or we can use less than 1000, but we cannot go beyond 1000. Now swing, so same data is given. Similarly, for packaging, the data is given. Every department has its capacity now. Now the demand for Parka overcoat is 800. Similarly, 750 for Goose, 600 for pants and 500 for gloves. The profit, unit profit means selling one product of Parka, we are going to get $30. Similarly for Goose, pants and gloves are given here. Now, as you remember, it is written that there is a penalty if we are unable to deliver the demand. So demand is given in the here. So if you are not going to deliver, then per unit penalty is $15 for Parka, 20 for Goose. Similarly, pants and gloves are given here. We have to devise an optimal production plan for the company. So here, if we are going to make a production plan, profit is given, unit penalty is given. So what we can find is how we can find, first of all, we have to decide what should be our objective function. So the objective function will become how much we are gaining and how much we are losing from the unit from the penalty. So from this, we can understand that if we say that X1 amount of Parka overcoats we are buying, we are selling. Similarly, X2 amount of a Goose overcoat we are producing, X3 amount for pants and X4 amount for gloves. So this, if we are going to make it, this is this much profit we are going to get it. Similarly, the penalty, suppose we can say some S1 amount we are unable to deliver. Similarly, S2 amount, S3 and S4. So let us take these things. So as we discussed, X1, X2, X3, X4 are the number of Parka, Goose, pants and gloves respectively. Now the net receipt, what we are going to receive is the total profit minus total penalty. Now, as I said, SJ. So this number of a shortage unit. Why? Because if we are not going to deliver that many units, we have to pay the penalty. So what is the demand? X1 plus S1 equal to 800, meaning that if we are going to make 800, then S1 will automatically 0. So that's why we have written in terms of the two variable X1 and S1. So the demand for the Parka jacket is or overcoat is X1 plus S1 is equals to 800. Similarly for Goose jacket or overcoat, X2 plus S2 750 and so on. So these are our constraints. And all the variable Xj's means X1, X2, X3 and X4 should be greater than 0. Similarly, Sj means S1, S2, S3 and S4 all should be greater than 0. This is called non-negativity condition. Now, what is our objective function? So we know that what we are, how much demand we are satisfying, the amount which we are making, that will give me the profit. So that's why based on the profit, unit profit given, we can see the maximum Z is equals to 30x1 plus 40x2 plus 20x3 plus 10x4 minus. Now these are the amount on which we are going to get a penalty. So if S1 is the amount which we have not delivered of the Parka overcoats, then 15 into S1 will become the penalty. Similarly for the other product. So the profit minus penalty will become our objective function, and we want to maximize our net receipt. Now we are left with few more constraints. We remember from the table that there are capacities for every department. When we are talking about the capacities, so let us write the equation left and right hand side. So here we know how much amount of these products we are making. So for cutting department, we have 0.3x1 plus 0.3x2 plus 0.25x3 plus 0.15x4, and on the right hand side we have 1000. Similarly, I can write for all the department. Now, as we have understood, capacity means I can use 1000 or less than 1000, but I cannot go beyond it. So therefore, the sign for all the constraints are smaller than type. So if we are going to write all the equations together, we have the objective function. We have constraint based on the capacity. We have constraints based on the demand, and all the variables should be greater than or equals to 0. Now, as of now, we have understood that if I have two variable problem, I can solve using graphical method. In this particular problem, we have more than two variables. So I cannot solve this problem using graphical method. So we have other methods such as simplex method, which we can use for solving this particular problem. Simplex method we will be learning after finishing this particular chapter. Now let us understand the another problem which is related to bus scheduling model. Now the problem statement says that Progress City is studying the feasibility of introducing a mass transit bus system that will alleviate the smoke problem by reducing in-city driving. The study seeks the minimum number of buses that can be handled to handle the transportation need. So you can see that our objective function is already defined by minimum number of buses that can handle the transportation need. After gathering necessary information, the city engineer noticed that the minimum number of buses needed fluctuated with the time of the day, and that required number of buses could be approximately by constant value over successive 4 intervals. So in the 4 interval, the number of buses are changing. So that requirement is noticed. Now figure 2.8 summarizes the engineer's finding. Now let us look at this figure here. Now we can see that y-axis is the number of buses and x-axis is the time. So we are starting at 12 a.m. and in a successive 4 hours interval. So from 12 a.m. to 4 a.m. we need 4 buses. From 4 to 8 we need 8 buses. 8 to 12 noon, because 8 a.m. is a peak hour, so we need 10 buses. From 12 to 4 we need 7 buses. 4 to 8 we need again 12 buses, and then from 8 p.m. to 12 midnight we need another 4 buses. So in the successive 4-hour interval, we can see that how many buses we needed from this graph. Now to carry out the required daily maintenance, each bus can operate 8 successive hours, meaning that when we are going to start a bus, it can run for 8 hours continuously. So let us take that some buses are starting at 12 in the midnight. So if it is starting at 12 in the midnight, so we know that it will be running till 8. Then in another succession, like after 4 hours, another set of buses are starting, say X2, and it will be running till 12, because a bus can run up to 8 hours. Similarly, we are starting some buses at 8 a.m., 12 noon, 4 p.m., 8 p.m. respectively. Now looking at this graph, we can understand that that the number of buses that are going to be started at 12 in the midnight, 4 a.m., 8 a.m., that will become our variable. And this can also be justified by saying that the minimum number of buses. So we have to find the values of these buses that will be running at different hours. So X1 is the number of buses starting at 12. Similarly, X2, X3, X4 and X5 at different time. These many number of buses are there. Now, what are the constraints? Now let us look into it. So the constraint is 4 number of buses, 8 number of buses. These are given. So we can write that from 12 to 4 a.m. we need X1 plus X6. So let us go back. If we see how many buses are running between 12 a.m. to 4 a.m. So we know that X1 is running. And if we look at X6, which is started at 8 p.m. and finishing at 4 a.m., those many buses are also running at the same time. So between 12 a.m. to 4 a.m., the number of buses which are running, that is X1 plus X6. Similarly, between 4 to 8, X1 plus X2. So that way we have identified the number of buses in those 4 hours of intervals. Now, first of all, let us write the objective function. As we have understood that we have to minimize the number of buses. So our objective function is we want to minimize Z equal to the number of buses from X1 to X6. Then let us write the constraint. So X1 plus X6. So between 12 to 4 a.m. we need. So here you can see that we need at least 4 buses to meet the requirement. So that's why we are writing X1 plus X6 greater than 4. Similarly, for the other intervals, the number of buses we need it that are given, and we want that particular number of buses should be either equal to say 8 or it can be more than 8. So these are going to be the constraint for the given problem, and all the variables should be greater than 0. So this is called non-negativity condition. Again, from this particular problem, you can see that since there are 6 variables, I cannot solve using graphical method. So we are going to solve similar kind of a problem when we learn simplex method. Coming to the last example, which is a trim loss or a stock slitting model. The Pacific Paper Company produces paper rolls with a standard width of 20 feet. Now you can see that the width is 20. Special customer orders with different widths are produced by slitting the standard roll. So when we make this 20 feet, we are going to cut in between, basically slitting, so that we can meet the demand. The typical orders, which may vary daily, are summarized in the table. So we can have, for example, 3 types of order. Somebody needing 5 feet of this roll, somebody is needing 7 feet of roll, somebody is needing 9 feet of this roll. So 20 feet of this width is given, the 7, 9 or 5 feet depending on the desired width, the orders which we can get it. What is the desired number of roll? 5 feet width rolls we need 150. Similarly for 7 feet 200 and 3 and for 9 feet we need around 300. Now setting knife to the desired width, it means that when we are putting a knife here, we are going to get 7 feet one piece. When we are putting the knife here, we are going to get 9 feet. So 7 and 9 feet, one unit we can get it from one setting. And we can see that some portion is not useful because 4 feet is not in demand. So it is going to be the wastage for us. Now let us take a case of these 3 settings. Now in setting 1, we will get 1 unit of 7 and 9 feet, but 4 unit is the wastage. Similarly, if we look at setting 2, I can get 2 units of 5 feet, 1 unit of 7 feet and 3 feet will become waste. And in the setting 3, we can get two units of 5 feet and 9 unit of 1 feet, and 1 feet will be the wastage. Now here, this is just to show you that the different configuration will give us different number of 5, 7 and 9 feet, and including there are some wastage. The desired number of a roll that is required. So we can say this is the demand we have to satisfy. Now let us take an example of feasible combination, meaning that let us select 300 rolls using setting 1. So such kind of a roll we have 300 and we are making 7 feet, 9 feet and 4 feet will be the waste, and 75 rolls using setting 2. Similarly, let us take another example of 200 rolls of setting 1 and 100 rolls of setting 3. Which combination is better? So here, let us find out the trim loss. Trim loss is the evaluation of the goodness of the solution. Let us assume that this particular roll has a length L. Now let us find out trim loss for a combination 1. So you remember that 300 rolls using setting 1, 75 rolls using setting 2. So 300 roll setting 1 plus 75 roll for this setting 2. So that will give me, let me go back. Yeah. So if I'm going to find the trim loss, you can see that in the setting 1, I'm going to lose 4 feet. And in setting 2, I'm going to lose 3 feet. So 300 unit into 4L is the wastage plus 75 into 3L is the wastage from the setting 2. So overall wastage is 1425 L feet square. I take second combination means 200 units of setting 1. So the wastage is 4L into 200 plus 100 unit of setting 3. So you can see there is a wastage of 1. So 100 into 1L is 900 this. Now the point is, when we are going to take any of the combination, then whatever be the surplus amount of 5, 7 and 9 feet rolls, that should also be considered as trim loss, meaning that if we are going to make more than 150 of 5, this is waste for us. Similarly, if we are going to get more than 200 rolls of 7, so above 200 is the wastage. Similarly for 9 feet roll. So in this case, let us take combination 1. Now combination 1 is, so if we look at the 7 feet, so 7 feet requirement is, we have 7 feet requirement is 200. But the setting 1 says that I'm going to use 300 unit, means 300 minus 200. So that is 100 is extra for 7 feet. Similarly, if we take a setting 2, then we have 75 extra of 7 feet in setting 2. So the total wastage is 170. So 100 plus 75, 175 into 7 into L. So 1225 L feet square. Let us take the second combination. Now second combination, if we look at it, the setting number 3, that produces extra 5 feet rolls. How much? The demand was 150. We are making 200. So 200 minus 150 is 50. And total waste is 50 into 5L. Now why it is 100? Because if you look at the setting 3, we are making 2 quantities of 5 feet. So since we are making 100 units of setting 3, so in a 1 unit, actually there are 2 5 feet rolls which are getting wasted. So that's why we have written 200 then minus 150. So if you look at the total trim loss area, so the combination 1 is 1425 plus 1225. So 2650 L feet square. Combination 2 is 900 plus 250 is 1150 feet square. So looking at the waste, we can see that the combination 2 is better than the combination 1. So understanding this particular analysis where we can have a different kind of a losses. Now let us look into the problem again. So we have to minimize the trim loss area by satisfying the demand. Promising setting cannot yield a trim loss roll of width 5 feet or more. So as we understood that the wastage cannot be more than 5, because if it is more than 5, I can take it out the 5 feet roll from it. Look at the table now. We have different knife setting, such as if you take 1, then we are not going to make any 5 feet, but we can make one unit of 7 and 9. So you remember the setting number 1. Similarly, setting 2, 3, up to 6 settings are recommended here. The required width 5, 7 and 9 are given. Minimum number of rows as per our demand are 150, 200 and 300. Now trim loss. So you know that how the trim loss was calculated. In the table it is given as, if we take if we are going to take setting number 1, the loss will be 4 feet. Then for 2 it is 3 feet. So it is matching with our understanding in the previous slide. So for all the 6 settings, the loss is given. So first of all, let us identify the numbers. Now here the question is, what should be our variable? Here we understood that we are trying to find out the minimum trim loss by slitting the roll. Now the variable will be decided based on that, because I can take any of the setting. So you remember that the previous combination says that 300 units of setting 1, 75 unit of setting 2. So in this case, what we can understand is for every setting, how many rolls we are going to use it. So X1 unit for setting 1, X2 unit for setting 2, and similarly for other knife setting, we can decide the number of rolls. So we are going to have 6 number of variables. When we are cutting these slates, our demand for 5 feet is given. How we can get it? So 0x1 plus 2x2 plus 2x3 plus 4x4 plus x5, 0 plus 0x6, and the minimum demand is 150, meaning that I'm going to write the same equation and demand is 150. Since it is minimum, so it should be greater than type, because it can take 150 or more than 150. Similarly for 7 feet, x1 plus x2 plus 2x5, it should be greater than 200. And similarly, we can write constraint for 9 feet roll produced. So if we are going to write the objective function and other constraint, so let us take the total area of the standard roll. Now we know that the width is 20. And let us assume that the length of the roll is L. So 20L, and the settings, how many units we are going to make by setting 1 and 2. We are taking X1, X2 till X6, the summation, and multiplying 20 into L. Now, this is what we have the total area of the standard roll. What is the total order? How we can find? This we can find from the minimum number of demand. So I know I need 5 feet of 150 rolls, 7 feet of 200 rolls, 9 feet of 300 rolls. So I can write L I'm taking outside. So 150 into 5. So this is the demand. This is the 5 feet roll plus 200 into 7 plus 300 into 9, which is 4850 L. So this is what we need as per the demand. What we want to minimize is the loss, because this is what we are going to use it. So the loss is 20L plus all the slits minus 48450. This much is the amount which we are going to use it. Whatever is the left out will become the trim loss. The LP formulation for the given problem we can write as, we want to minimize. So here what you can see that we have removed all these constant. Here, if I'm going to minimize this thing or minimizing just x1 plus x2, that will remain the same. Why? Because 20 into L is a constant and what we are subtracting is also a constant. So basically minimizing this or minimizing this will give me the same solution. Subjected to, we have the demand on 5 feet, 7 feet and 9 feet rolls. So those equations we have written and all the variables should be greater than equals to 0. That is a non-negativity condition. So these are some problems which we have discussed in this particular session. You can look into some other problems given in the book and you can understand how we can make the LP programming. Before I conclude this particular chapter on LP modeling, we have to understand that when we will be working in any organization, making this mathematical equation is our task. So understanding the problem. So as you can see, the problem is given in words. Some tables are given. So we have to understand the problem and then we have to write the objective function, constraints and a variable bound. So this is our task to understand the problem and write in a mathematical problem, in a mathematical formulation. The second task is to solve it. So in this particular session, what we have understood that if there is a 2 variable problem, we can solve it using graphical method. But if it is more, we need some other method, which we will be discussing later. And that method is called simplex method. So go through the examples that are given in the book so that you can learn how to make the problem formulation.